She's just his ex, nothing to worry about. That was the first sentence I heard her say before she realized she was working in my restaurant. Subscribe for more stories where revenge isn't loud, it's unforgettable. The soft clink of cutlery and murmurs of gentle conversation filled the air, wrapping the dining room of Bellevue House in a cocoon of upscale tranquility. I hadn't stepped foot in this place since my heart was broken, since I watched my world unravel at the hands of the man I trusted and the woman who now sat across from him, laughing like she had already won. But I wasn't here for them. Not tonight. I was here because I had built something, rebuilt myself from ruins, and I was finally ready to sit in that victory. Alone. Proud. In control. The host greeted me with a warm smile and bowed slightly. Welcome back, Miss Marlowe. Your table is ready. Every time someone called me by my name here, it gave me a little thrill. Because Marlowe wasn't just my name anymore, it was the signature behind every dish, every tablecloth, every training manual in this restaurant. I followed the host through the grand archway and beneath the sparkling chandelier that bathed everything in golden light. My heels clicked against the marble in perfect rhythm with my heartbeat. And then I heard it. His laugh. Deep, familiar, and laced with arrogance. I stopped walking, not obviously, just enough that my body tensed. I didn't need to look. I knew that laugh. And I knew who it belonged to. Connor. Then her voice cut through, high and flirty. Oh, I just adore this place. It's so classy, way nicer than those places his ex dragged him to. What was her name again? Clara. Carly. I smiled. I actually smiled. It was almost funny. She didn't even recognize me yet. The host led me to my table near the large floor-to-ceiling windows, the best seat in the house. A seat reserved only for VIPs, or owners. As I sat, I could feel Connor's gaze settle on me like a sudden draft of cold air. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Let them come to me. From the corner of my eye, I saw the moment the woman noticed. Her brows pinched. Her head tilted. And then she leaned closer to Connor with a confused whisper. She's familiar. Is that her? Connor shifted in his seat. Not so confident now. I picked up my wine glass, letting the chilled stem rest between my fingers, and turned my gaze, slowly, casually, toward their table. And there it was. His face, pale and tight. Her face, still smirking, but slightly off balance. You're Clara, right? She called across, smiling with just enough poison in her tone to make it sound like a compliment. That's one way to put it, I replied, taking a calm sip. Connor cleared his throat and muttered, Nora, maybe we should. But Nora didn't stop. She was enjoying herself too much. It's just wild, right? How life turns out. I mean, some people just don't fit. And some of us. Well, we do. She said it like she already knew how the night would end. That's the thing about women like Nora, they never see the cliff until they're falling off it. Just then, our server, Luis, who had trained with me personally, approached with his signature smooth tone. Ms. Marlowe, he said, would you like us to prepare your private suite upstairs this evening? I saw Nora's smirk twitch. Private suite, she repeated, blinking. I'm comfortable here, I replied, smiling. But the damage was already done. She turned to Connor, confusion creeping in like water under a locked door. What does he mean? Why would you have a private? I cut in gently. He didn't tell you. Connor rubbed the back of his neck, jaw tight. Clara. I leaned forward just slightly. I own this place. Silence. Nora's face froze. Her glass wavered in her grip. You own it? she asked, like the words were foreign. I didn't flinch. That's right. I saw the truth crawl across her face, slowly cracking through the mask she wore. And I wasn't angry. Not at all. In fact, I was the calmest I'd ever been. Because she had walked into my space, sat at my table, belittled me from a place of false confidence, all while wearing an apron with my logo on it. Yes. Nora worked here. But she had no idea. Not yet. And that's what made it delicious. I let the silence hang just long enough for her to feel the weight of what I said. She looked to Connor for backup, but he had nothing. No defense. No plan. I smiled softly, setting my glass down. Enjoy your evening, I said. But she wouldn't. Because this was just the beginning. The next morning, I arrived at Bellevue House just before dawn, as I often did. It was my favorite time of day. The kitchen hummed with low voices and the rhythmic chop of knives against cutting boards. The warm scent of baked sourdough mixed with fresh rosemary drifted through the halls. In this quiet lull before service, everything felt calm, predictable, until I heard the back door swing open and saw her. Nora. She hesitated in the doorway. Gone was the breezy confidence she carried the night before. She looked smaller somehow, clutching her tote bag like it was a shield. Her eyes scanned the kitchen, unsure where to land. The same staff she had once gossiped with and leaned on for shortcuts passed her without a second glance. No jokes. No fake praise. Just silence. She hadn't been fired. Not yet. I wanted her to walk through the consequences of her own ignorance before I made any moves. I stood near the pass, arms folded, pretending to scan the reservation list as she walked past. She noticed me, of course. How could she not? But she didn't say anything. Just kept her head low and moved quickly to the prep area. Morning, I said, not looking up. Morning, she murmured back. It was the first time she had spoken to me without a hint of superiority. I waited until the staff meeting ended before calling her into my office. She entered slowly, her shoulders slightly hunched. The same office she had passed 100 times without realizing who sat inside. Close the door, I said evenly. She obeyed. I gestured to the chair across from me. Sit. She did, setting her bag on her lap like a barrier between us. I let the silence stretch until she squirmed. So, I began, opening a folder on my desk. You've been working here for almost 7 months. She nodded. And in that time, you've had 3 customer complaints, 5 late arrivals, and you've switched 3 different sections to avoid the weekend rush. Does that sound about right? Her lips parted, then closed again. She looked down. I've also received multiple reports of selective service, I continued. Kind to those you liked. Dismissive to those you didn't. Gossiping about guests. Taking breaks without clocking out. I didn't know, she started, then stopped herself. That I was watching. I offered. She looked up, guilt flickering behind her eyes. That's the thing, Nora. You didn't know anything, I said, tapping my pen. You walked in here last night and bragged about being better than me while wearing a uniform with my name stitched onto it. You mocked someone whose restaurant pays your bills. She opened her mouth again but closed it, realizing nothing she said could take back what had been done. This is not a place where favoritism or shortcuts are rewarded, I said firmly. From now on, you'll be on peak shifts, front sections, full rotation. You'll learn what it means to earn your place here. She stiffened. You're demoting me. I'm giving you the opportunity to show whether you belong. And if I don't, she whispered. I leaned forward. Then you don't stay. That was it. No yelling. No drama. Just consequences. And I could see it hit her. This wasn't personal revenge. This was a system she couldn't manipulate. Here, I held the cards. She had none. You're dismissed, I said. Nora stood slowly, her eyes shining with unshed emotion. She didn't cry. Not yet. But the pressure was mounting. As the door clicked shut behind her, I turned back to my reports. The rhythm of the kitchen resumed outside. But the balance inside Bellevue House had shifted. Later that day, I watched her during the lunch rush. It was brutal, overbooked tables, impatient guests, complicated orders. She was overwhelmed, flustered, barely keeping up. A server dropped out due to illness, and I assigned her to take on extra tables. She didn't argue. She had no choice. By mid-afternoon, she was drenched in sweat and visibly trembling. At one table, she forgot a guest's allergy warning and had to remake a dish. At another, she knocked over a water pitcher. But she kept going. Gritting her teeth. Pushing through. And then it happened. She spilled wine, an entire glass, onto a guest's lap. The woman gasped, jumping back, her white blouse ruined. Nora froze, horror washing over her. Her hands fluttered uselessly. I'm so sorry, she stammered. The guest narrowed her eyes. Louise rushed over, calm and efficient, offering immediate assistance. The situation was contained, but the tension lingered. Nora looked over at me. Her eyes pleaded for help, for rescue. I didn't move. This was her mess. She needed to clean it up. After the shift, she stayed behind without being told. She cleaned every table she had worked, refilled napkins, wiped menus. Her energy was gone. Her hands moved like they were weighed down by shame. Finally, she approached me near the bar. I messed up, she said quietly. I nodded. But I want to fix it. I raised an eyebrow. Why? Her answer was soft. Because this place, it's better than me. And I want to earn the right to be here. For the first time, her words felt real. Not polished. Not performative. Just honest. I said nothing. I let her stand there, holding that discomfort, unsure if she'd be given another chance. Because redemption is never handed over easily. It's earned, inch by painful inch. And tomorrow, she'd have to do it all again. Only this time, with me watching closer than ever. The next morning, Bellevue House glowed in soft amber light as the early staff moved like clockwork through opening routines. I arrived just after sunrise, my heels echoing across the polished floor. The atmosphere was quiet, focused, respectful, everything I had worked to build after clawing my way back from Betrayal. And as I stepped into the dining room, I saw her. Nora was already there. Apron tied tightly, sleeves rolled up, wiping down menus one by one with surprising precision. Her posture was rigid, her face pale but determined. No makeup. No theatrics. Just focus. Morning, I said. She jumped slightly. Morning, she replied, still not meeting my gaze. I walked past her toward the bar but paused at the host stand to check the day's reservations. We were booked solid. 2 corporate brunches, a wedding tasting, and a fully reserved evening, all of it hinging on grace under pressure. I made sure Nora was on point for the brunch section. I wanted to see if she would crack again, or rise. By 10 a.m., the room was buzzing. Orders came fast. Customers chatted and snapped photos of their meals. Glasses clinked. Plates flew out of the kitchen. And Nora. She worked like she had something to prove. She checked allergy lists before each order. She handled a rude table with dignity, apologized when she forgot extra butter, and even helped another server carry an overloaded tray when no one asked her to. Her hands still trembled slightly, but she didn't let them stop her. But across the room, he returned. Connor. He walked in unannounced, wearing his signature navy button-up and smug little smile. As if nothing had happened. As if he hadn't watched Nora unravel 2 nights ago. He gave me a nod from the entrance like we were still something. I didn't nod back. Instead, I watched Nora's reaction. Her shoulders tensed. She turned her head, saw him, and for the first time, didn't go to him. She finished her task, delivering a cappuccino to table 5, before slowly walking over to him near the bar. No hug. No smile. Just stillness. You came, she said flatly. Of course I did, he replied. Why wouldn't I? She blinked, as if trying to figure out what he was really saying. He leaned on the counter casually. So, how's work? She tilted her head. You know how it is, she said. Some of us don't get to skip the struggle. Connor laughed, but it was hollow. Forced. I mean, it's cute that you're taking this seriously, but we both know this is just a phase, he said. My blood chilled. But I said nothing. Because this moment wasn't mine. It was hers. Nora crossed her arms. A phase? Come on, he said with a smile. You're not meant for aprons and table numbers. This place, he gestured broadly, is beneath you. It's just a detour, not the road. She didn't answer immediately. I could see her jaw tightening. Then she said something I didn't expect. Maybe I thought that once, she admitted. Maybe I thought I was above this. Above her, she added with a glance toward me. My chest tightened, but I kept my expression neutral. But now, she continued, I'm not so sure. Connor frowned. Are you serious? I'm saying, she said slowly, I was wrong. About everything. He blinked, not understanding. Not yet. You're overthinking this, he said. Let's get dinner tonight. Somewhere better. She shook her head. I can't, she said. Why not? Her answer came quietly but firmly. Because I work here now. And I care. Connor scoffed. Nora. Stop pretending this place matters to you. It's just a job. You said so yourself. She smiled sadly. Yeah. I did. But I didn't understand it back then. Connor leaned in. So what? You're choosing this place over me. And that was the moment. The air between them shifted. Because Nora didn't flinch. She didn't hesitate. She just stared at him and said, yes. The word hit like a knife. His mouth opened, but no words came out. I watched as he stepped back, shook his head, and muttered, whatever. He left without another glance. Nora turned away from the door slowly and caught me watching. She didn't look embarrassed. She looked free. At the end of the shift, I called her into the office again. This time, she didn't fidget. She sat up straight, waited for me to speak. Nice work today, I said. She nodded. Thanks. I studied her for a moment. You've changed. She didn't argue. I had to. I leaned forward. So why are you still here? She shrugged. Because. I want to be. It wasn't a performance. It wasn't strategy. It was choice. That night, as I locked up the restaurant and looked out across the empty dining room, I realized something else. This revenge, it wasn't about making someone crawl. It was about making them choose. And for once, someone finally had. Tomorrow, I'd see who that person really was. By the fourth week of Nora's new schedule, something unexpected had happened. She started to shine. It wasn't that she became the best server overnight. She still made mistakes, occasionally stumbled under pressure, and her hands still trembled if the kitchen yelled too loud. But there was something else now. Something unteachable. She cared. She began staying after her shift ended, helping polish silverware even when it wasn't her section. She reviewed the specials each morning without being asked. She asked questions. Real ones. And she started listening. Not just to me, but to the customers, the chefs, the dishwasher, even the intern in charge of candles. She stopped acting like the job was beneath her, and started treating it like something that mattered. And when she walked into Bellevue House each morning, people noticed. Even the staff, who had once rolled their eyes at her dramatic flair, started nodding to her with genuine acknowledgement. She smiled more often. Not the sugary fake kind, but the tired, real kind, the smile of someone trying, failing, and trying again anyway. And then Connor came back. It was Friday night. Peak hours. The dining room was packed. Jazz played low under the murmur of high-end clientele. I was at the front, reviewing a wine delivery, when I saw him enter. Same confident strut. Same tailored shirt. But something was off. Desperation. He scanned the room until his eyes found her. Nora. She was serving table 12. Smiling. Focused. He didn't wait for her to finish. He walked right up and tapped her shoulder. We need to talk. She froze for a second, then calmly set down a water pitcher and turned to him. I'm working. Connor blinked, clearly not expecting resistance. I said we need to talk, he repeated. And I said I'm working, she replied. I have 5 tables. You can wait. He looked around, suddenly aware that customers were listening. His voice dropped. You've changed. She nodded. I have. He took a breath, softening his tone. Nora, look. I know things got messy, but you and we had something. You can't pretend you don't remember how good we were. She raised her eyebrows. You mean when you told everyone I was a placeholder until you found someone with real ambition? When you called my goals cute while sleeping with someone who funded your real future? His jaw clenched. That's not fair. No, she said, but it's accurate. Connor took a step closer. This place isn't you. Nora glanced around. At the tables she now managed. At the team she worked beside. At the restaurant that had quietly become her second skin. Yes, she said, her voice firm, it is. He tried again. So that's it. You're choosing this over us. I'm choosing myself. He didn't know what to say to that. And I didn't need to step in. Not this time. Because Nora no longer needed saving. She turned back to her guests, and Connor stood there for a second, awkward and stunned, before finally walking out the door. He didn't come back. Later that night, I found Nora at the back sink rinsing out bar towels. Her face was flushed from the dinner rush, but her eyes were clear. Everything okay? I asked. She nodded. Yeah. He came. He left. I stayed. I let out a small breath. You did good. I meant it, you know, she said. When I said I wanted to be here. I know, I said. I don't know what happens next, she admitted. None of us do, I replied. We just show up. And keep showing up. She smiled. The next morning, I saw her arrive early again. She went straight to the host stand, scanned the day's layout, and without being told, reorganized the flow to ease pressure during brunch. I watched her. This woman who had once walked into my restaurant mocking me now stood like someone who belonged. Not because she had taken anything, but because she had earned it. And that, more than any revelation, any ownership title, any public humiliation, was the revenge I never planned but always wanted. To see her become someone better than she ever intended to be. Because the best revenge isn't just watching them fall. It's watching them rise, on your terms. The evening air was cooler than usual, a soft breeze curling in through the open windows of Bellevue House as I walked the dining floor. Candles flickered on every table, casting golden halos against crystal glassware and polished silver. It was our monthly wine pairing night, one of our most intimate events. Reserved for regulars. For those who understood the care poured into every plate, every pour. Nora stood near the service station, flipping through her notes, her brow furrowed in deep concentration. She had been studying for her advanced server certification for 2 weeks now, asking questions about wine notes, dish origins, even the history of the cutlery we used. This wasn't a woman pretending to belong. This was a woman investing in her place here. I nodded at her. She nodded back. Simple. Respectful. And then, as if on cue, a customer I hadn't seen in months stepped inside. Veronica. Connor's ex before me. The one he dumped when I came along. I had heard whispers that they'd reconnected, briefly, right after Nora's fall from grace. That whatever reunion they tried fizzled just as fast. She looked older, though only a few years had passed. Tired. Worn in a way that fine makeup couldn't disguise. She walked right up to me and said, "I heard you run this place now." I smiled. "I do." She gave a short laugh. "He always did say you were too intense." Turns out that's a compliment. I tilted my head. "Why are you here, Veronica?" She looked around, her eyes softening as they landed on Nora, who was still focused on her pre-shift checklist. "To see her," she said. "You know each other?" I asked, surprised. "We met once," she replied. "When Connor brought her to a bar I worked at 2 years ago." She didn't say anything, but I could see it in her eyes. She thought she'd won. And now she looks free. I followed her gaze. Nora was laughing with Luis now, showing him a tiny drawing she'd doodled of the kitchen staff during break. It was silly, but charming. The kind of thing someone does when they're not trying so hard to be someone else. "I was like her, once," Veronica murmured. "Chasing him. Competing with ghosts. Then one day, I stopped running. And I found peace. Like she's doing now." I looked at Veronica. She wasn't bitter. She wasn't fishing for sympathy. She was here to witness a full circle moment, one I hadn't even seen coming. "I think she's finally figured it out," Veronica said, nodding toward Nora. "She has," I agreed. And then Veronica gave me a look I'll never forget. "You did that," she said. "You could have broken her. But instead, you made space for her to grow." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. She left without ordering anything. Just a quiet nod before slipping back into the night. Later, after the event had ended and the last table had cleared, I stepped into the kitchen to find Nora still scrubbing down her station. "You don't have to stay this late," I said gently. She looked up, cheeks flushed, curls falling loose from her ponytail. "I know," she said. "But I wanted to. Even after everything." She paused. Then she looked me straight in the eye. "I needed to fall," she said. "But I never needed to be crushed. You gave me that difference. And there it was. The truth I didn't realize I had been waiting for. You gave it to yourself, I corrected. She smiled. It was small. But it was whole. As I turned to leave, she called out one more thing. Clara. I turned back. Thank you. And that was it. Not a grand apology. Not a plea for approval. Just gratitude. Earned and honest. I left her to finish her station, stepping out into the empty dining room one last time before closing. The chairs were stacked. The lights dimmed. The scent of lavender oil from the floor polish lingered in the air. And I realized, as I stood in the middle of this space I had fought so hard to reclaim, this story wasn't about Nora. Or Connor. Or revenge. It was about healing. I had created something sacred. And someone who once tried to tear it down had helped protect it. Not because I forced her to. But because she chose to. That's when I finally let go of the anger. The resentment. The need to always be 2 steps ahead. Because I wasn't behind anymore. I was exactly where I needed to be. And for the first time in years, I was whole. The invitation came 3 weeks later. Slid under the restaurant door in a pristine white envelope, sealed with gold foil. I nearly tossed it in the trash, assuming it was another vendor trying to sell overpriced tableware, until I saw the handwriting. Connors. The envelope was addressed to Clara Marlowe, owner, Bellevue House. Formal. Careful. Like a man trying to walk back into a place he once burned. I opened it. Inside was a letter, handwritten in careful script. No signature. Just a time, a location, and a simple request. I'd like to talk. One last time. The meeting spot wasn't a restaurant or a cafe. It was a park. The one we used to walk through on Sundays, back when our lives were a string of hopeful maybes and borrowed promises. I hadn't been there since the day he left. I almost didn't go. But something in me, curiosity, perhaps, needed to know what he thought he could say. The next evening, I arrived just as the sun dipped behind the trees, painting the sky with oranges and deep purples. He was already there, sitting on the bench by the pond, in the same pressed shirt he used to wear on nights he wanted to impress someone. His eyes lit up when he saw me. Not with love, but with relief. Like a man who had convinced himself the door wasn't closed yet. Clara, he stood. You came. I nodded but didn't sit. I don't have much time. He hesitated. I've been thinking a lot about us. We ended, I said. You made sure of that. I know, he replied. But seeing you again, at Bellevue, it reminded me of who you are. What we had. What we had, I echoed, was a version of me you never understood. Or respected. I was wrong, he said, voice low. About everything. I let my ego ruin what we had. And seeing you now, so strong, successful, it made me realize how much I lost. I didn't answer. I let the silence fill the space. He stepped forward. I want to fix things. I laughed, quiet but sharp. Fix what? Your guilt. Your image. No, he said quickly. Us. There is no us, I said. Not anymore. But we had something, Clara. Yes, I agreed. We had a lie. Dressed up in shared brunches and whispered plans. And when it cracked, you ran. He looked pained, but I didn't let it soften me. Not now. Not when I had rebuilt every piece of myself without him. I made mistakes, he admitted. I thought I was upgrading. But I was chasing noise. And now you're tired of the noise, I said. So you came looking for the silence you discarded. He looked at me, really looked. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know. I see it now. I nodded. I'm glad you do. His shoulders sagged, as if he expected more. A door cracked open. A second chance. But I wasn't that woman anymore. I stepped back. Goodbye, Connor. That's it? He asked. I turned. That's enough. As I walked away, the wind picked up, rustling the trees above us. The pond reflected the fading sky, and I felt something loosen in my chest. Not anger. Not revenge. Closure. Real, irreversible closure. Back at the restaurant, Nora was finishing up her shift when I returned. She looked up, surprised to see me in street clothes. You okay? She asked. More than okay, I replied. She raised an eyebrow, curious. I smiled. Some doors are better left closed. And with that, I walked past her, up the stairs, and into my office. I poured a glass of the aged Merlot we reserved for celebrations and sat down at my desk. Not to work. To breathe. Because I had finally done it. I had walked through every room in my past, and left the doors shut behind me. Tomorrow, Bellevue House would open again. The candles would flicker. The wine would flow. And the woman at its heart would no longer be haunted. She'd be whole. And more powerful than she had ever imagined. The restaurant was humming again. Not just with customers, but with something deeper, momentum. Bellevue House had always been a place of quiet refinement, but now it pulsed with intention. Staff moved like gears in a fine watch. Every detail was polished, every motion purposeful. And Nora was no longer the outsider. She moved confidently between tables, making recommendations with authority, handling complaints with calm grace. When a regular asked if she was the new floor manager, she had smiled and said, "Not yet," without a hint of insecurity. Luis came to me that evening after we closed. He had a towel slung over one shoulder, flour on his cheek, and his eyes serious. "She's ready," he said. I didn't need to ask who he meant. "I know," I replied. That night, I stayed behind to rewrite the staff schedule. I shifted Nora into mentorship roles for new hires, added her to the training cycle, and marked her for our quarterly leadership retreat. It was time. But I didn't tell her. Not yet. I wanted to see what she would do without knowing what waited around the corner. The next week tested her more than any before. A power outage hit mid-dinner rush on Thursday. All systems went down, POS, lights, ovens. Guests panicked. Staff froze. For a moment, everything teetered on the edge of chaos. Then I watched something incredible. Nora took over. She lit candles from the emergency drawer. She organized the team to serve cold dishes and wine while we reset the breakers. She stood at the front of the house, calming guests, offering free desserts, moving like someone who owned the floor. And when the lights flickered back to life 15 minutes later, no one had left. Every guest stayed. Every guest clapped. Even I clapped. After service, I called her into my office. She was still flushed from the adrenaline, her hair in a messy knot, sleeves rolled up to her elbows. "You were remarkable tonight," I said. She opened her mouth to deflect. "Don't," I stopped her. "Just take the compliment." She smiled, then looked down. "I used to hate this place," she admitted. "Because it reminded me of what I wasn't." "And now?" I asked. "Now," she said quietly, "it reminds me of who I want to be." I nodded slowly. Then slid an envelope across the desk. "What's this?" she asked. Your invitation, I said, to lead. Her eyes widened. You're promoting me. No, I said gently. You already earned that. This is just me catching up. She opened the envelope and pulled out the title card. Assistant floor manager. Her hands trembled. You don't owe me this, she whispered. No, I agreed. But I owe the restaurant the best. And right now, that's you. She wiped at her eyes before they could well up. Clara. I shook my head. Don't thank me yet. The role comes with expectations. She stood straighter. Good. I want them. Later that night, I passed by the kitchen just as she was telling the dishwasher to clock out early and go study. He had a college midterm the next day. She had remembered. No one asked her to. And the moment I heard the other servers address her by name, not as a joke, not as a whisper, but with genuine respect, I knew she had crossed the line. Not into perfection. Into belonging. I had spent so much of my life trying to guard what I built from people like her, people who seemed to take without giving. But what I learned was this. Sometimes, the greatest revenge isn't exclusion. It's transformation. Watching someone change so deeply, so truly, that they could never go back to who they once were, even if they tried. And Nora. She wasn't that girl anymore. Not even close. It started like any other Monday. The usual pre-shift meeting gathered everyone around the central table in the staff lounge, chef still in prep gear, servers sipping coffee, dish crew yawning between bites of toast. I stood at the front, clipboard in hand, eyes scanning the room. Except this time, I wasn't leading it. I handed the floor to Nora. She hesitated for only a second, then stepped up. No apology. No awkward fidgeting. She stood straight, eyes calm, and began. This week, she said, we're tightening our transitions between lunch and dinner service. Our timing's improved, but we're losing momentum between shifts. She walked through the data I had given her, turnover rates, average table times, customer reviews, and laid out a simple, efficient solution. And the staff listened. They took notes. Asked questions. One of the chefs even nodded with visible approval, Chef Remy, the hardest one to please. And when she finished, they clapped. It wasn't forced. It wasn't polite. It was earned. I didn't say anything right away. I just looked at the woman in front of me. Her hair was still messy from rushing to the bakery that morning, and her apron had a faint coffee stain on the hem, but she stood like someone who knew her place. Not because she demanded it. Because she built it. After the meeting, Nora caught me in the hallway. Was that okay? She asked, chewing her bottom lip. You didn't ask me first, I replied. Her face fell. And that's exactly why it was perfect, I said. You took ownership. Her smile bloomed slowly. I've been trying. You've been becoming, I corrected. That afternoon, a regular guest, a quiet elderly woman named Mrs. Arlo, requested Nora personally. She asked for her by name. When the check came, Mrs. Arlo left a handwritten note on the receipt. She reminds me of you. Years ago. Nora showed me the note, her voice soft. Is that a good thing? It's the highest compliment you'll get here, I told her. The days passed quickly after that. She started staying late to review scheduling needs. Coordinating staff breaks. Diffusing tension between a pastry chef and a barista over a freezer mix-up. All without being told. But it was a moment near closing that truly hit me. A young hostess, barely 18 and still nervous around guests, messed up a reservation list. A table of 4 was seated in the wrong spot, and one of them had a severe shellfish allergy. The kitchen had already begun the wrong prep. It could have been a disaster. But Nora caught it. She rushed to the table, calmly explained the situation, apologized sincerely, and pulled together a new four-top seating with lightning speed. Then she personally ensured the new meals were prepped safely and delivered with wine on the house. I watched it all unfold. No panic. No ego. Just action. After the guests left, the hostess looked near tears. I ruined everything. Nora knelt beside her. You didn't ruin anything. You made a mistake. That's how we learn. But listen to me, she said, firm but kind. I've made bigger mistakes than this. And I'm still here. So will you be. Just own it. Fix it. Grow from it. The girl nodded, eyes shimmering. And I stepped back. Because I didn't need to be the one people ran to anymore. Nora was becoming that person. Later that night, she found me in the back office again, lingering in the doorway like she used to. I wanted to ask you something, she said. Shoot. Why didn't you fire me? I leaned back in my chair. Because you weren't broken. Just arrogant. And arrogance can be chiseled. She looked away, a little embarrassed. I almost quit, she admitted. I know. But I didn't. I know that, too. She paused. I didn't think I was worth saving. I stood then, slowly walking around the desk. Then you were wrong about that, too. She blinked, caught off guard. I wasn't just teaching you about service, I said. I was testing whether you could unlearn what brought you here. She swallowed. And did I? Every day, a little more. That night, I walked out with her. We locked the doors together, the city lights bouncing across the restaurant's windows like stars pressed against glass. For the first time, I didn't feel like the only woman who could hold this place together. There were two of us now. Both forged in fire. And finally standing side by side. The first time I saw Nora truly tested again, it wasn't by pressure. Or guests. Or even Connor. It was by choice. It was a Saturday night, and the dining room was alive with energy. A jazz trio played near the windows, candles danced on tables, and every seat was filled. Nora was in full command of the floor, gliding between tables, checking in with the kitchen, even helping a nervous server steady a tray on their first shift. Then, like a shadow slipping through the door, she walked in. Vanessa. Not the Vanessa I remembered, proud, glossy, dressed to be seen. This version was different. Her hair was tied up hastily, her lipstick uneven, a clipboard tucked under one arm. She was here for an interview. I hadn't seen her in over a year. I hadn't even thought about her. But now, here she was, nervously checking in at the host's stand, her voice a whisper. The hostess, bless her heart, glanced around awkwardly before gently directing her to wait at the bar. I stood frozen behind the wine station, watching from a distance. And before I could move, I saw Nora notice her too. Our eyes met. She had every reason to smirk. To gloat. To remind Vanessa of everything that had happened. Of who owned the floor now. But she didn't. Instead, she walked over to the bar slowly, without arrogance, and approached Vanessa with calmness that made even me pause. Hi, she said. Vanessa looked up, startled. She clearly hadn't expected to see Nora. And certainly not like this. I didn't know you worked here, she said quickly. I needed something stable. Nora nodded slowly. This place is good for that. There was silence. Vanessa fumbled with her sleeve. I don't know if they'll even hire me. You never know, Nora replied. That's all she said. No bitterness. No digs. Just mercy. And then, without fanfare, she stepped back and returned to her station. I watched all of it. When the interview concluded, an informal one done quickly by our assistant GM, I caught wind of what had happened. Vanessa had been polite. Overqualified. Desperate. She needed a job. The GM asked me quietly what I wanted to do. He had no idea of the history. I looked across the room at Nora, now calmly extinguishing a candle at table 7, and I made my decision. Call her tomorrow, I told him. And offer her 2 shifts a week. Start small. Back of house. He nodded and walked away. I approached Nora later that night while we were finishing up the closing tasks. You handled that with grace, I said. She didn't look up right away. I thought I'd feel something. And I just felt tired. Not of her. Of the game. I nodded. She looked like someone who finally ran out of angles, she continued. And I know what that feels like. So you showed her mercy. No, she said thoughtfully. I showed her who I've become. We were quiet for a moment. Then I asked the question I'd been holding in. If she works here, will you be okay? She smiled, faint but sure. She's not competition anymore. Not to me. Not here. That's when I knew the journey was complete. Not just for Nora. For me. I had held on to Bellevue House like armor, guarding it from every betrayal, every threat. But I had also held on to my identity as the woman scorned, the woman proving herself every night under crystal chandeliers and candlelight. And Nora. She had arrived like a storm. Uninvited. Loud. Thoughtless. But she had stayed like roots. Firm. Quiet. Steady. Later, as we locked up together, the wind howled through the alley beside the restaurant. Nora turned, tucking her scarf tighter, and looked up at the glowing sign of the place we had both come to love. It's funny, she said. I came here to destroy you. And this place saved me. I laughed softly. You didn't destroy me. You challenged me. And I failed, she replied. No, I said. You learned. That's harder. She looked at me, really looked. Thank you for letting me. I didn't respond. Instead, I pulled out a second key. I placed it in her hand without a word. She stared at it, then at me, eyes wide. I'm not giving it to you, I said. I'm trusting you with it. Because someday, I would step away. And someone would need to carry the fire forward. That someone was standing right in front of me. Nora. No longer a rival. No longer a mistake. But a woman forged in the fire she once set herself. 6 months later, Bellevue House thrived like never before. We had expanded our menu. Introduced a seasonal chef series. Even booked a feature in a local food and culture magazine. Reservations were filled weeks out, and new applicants lined up at our door hoping to work for a place that, as one guest put it, felt like dignity with dessert. But the biggest change wasn't on paper. It wasn't in our profits or PR mentions. It was standing at the host's stand in a sharp, slate gray uniform with her name stitched cleanly across the chest. Nora Fielding. Co-manager. Not assistant. Not trainee. Co-manager. And she didn't earn that title by crawling. She earned it by building, slowly, painfully, with grit I never thought she had in her. She no longer looked like the girl who once tossed petty comments across my restaurant floor. Gone was the need to impress, the flashy eyeliner, the curated arrogance. In its place stood a woman who spoke when it mattered, who listened when she didn't have to, and who cared about the staff like they were her family. Sometimes, I'd catch her sitting with the new hires late into the evening, helping them learn the register, teaching plating standards, or just talking them through hard nights. Not because anyone told her to. Because she remembered what it felt like to be lost. To be at the bottom. To have no one willing to see beyond your worst day. And that, above all else, made her leadership real. One evening, I sat near the bar with a glass of wine, after hours, lights low, staff trickling out. Nora joined me without asking, as she often did now. We sat in silence for a few minutes, the hum of the city barely reaching us through the thick windows. "Do you ever miss it?" she asked suddenly. "Miss what?" "Being angry," she said. I smiled faintly. "Sometimes. It gave me fuel." "Me too," she said. "But it also made everything blurry." I turned to her. "And now?" "I see everything," she said. "Even the parts one used to pretend weren't mine." She swirled her glass of water. She'd stopped drinking wine on shift long ago. Another quiet shift. Another earned change. "I used to think revenge meant taking something back," she said. "But now I think, it means reclaiming who you were before someone tried to reduce you." I stared at her for a long time. "You've outgrown the punishment," I said softly. She nodded. "And maybe you have too." The next week, I officially handed over half the floor operations to her. Scheduling, hiring, vendor calls, all hers. Staff barely blinked. They trusted her. But something strange happened after that. I started taking days off. Real ones. The kind where I left my phone off and went walking without a plan. Where I sat in cafes as a guest. Where I remembered who I was before the betrayal, before the rebuild, before I clung to this place like a lifeline. Because Bellevue House wasn't my shield anymore. It was my legacy. And Nora. She wasn't just part of it. She was protecting it, growing it, redefining it with every quiet act of strength. I visited one evening unannounced, weeks later. Nora didn't see me at first. She was in full command, coordinating a last-minute party extension, balancing a new trainee's panic, and charming a table of influencers with the grace of someone who no longer needed to prove herself. She caught sight of me just as I was slipping out. "Clara," she called. I turned, half laughing. "Just visiting." She grinned. "You'll always belong here." That night, as I walked through the quiet streets, I realized something I hadn't said aloud, not to her, not even to myself. The woman she became. I never planned for her. Never expected her. But I'm glad she exists. Not just for the restaurant. For me. Because her rise was not just her story, it was the closing chapter of mine. Revenge had brought us together. But growth made us family. And sometimes, the most unexpected person becomes your best redemption. Not by bowing. Not by apologizing. But by choosing, every day, to be better than they were. And reminding you to do the same.